Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We are up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. However you may be doing so, whatever you're getting to, however you're chiming in, if you want to, which you can do, of course, over on the social media, as we mentioned there, because, yeah, there's a lot of places you can find us. Spoiler alert. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. I mean, there's different levels of commenting. The Facebook and the YouTube, certainly we can put up the comments. The Twitch as well. Twitter's more of a DM thing, but if you're into that or you want to do that, we do check those as well. We just can't pop them up on screen as cleanly, but demonstrating that there, of course, is Ida Beza Gardner over on the Facebook saying hello and waving to you as well. So appreciate that and tuning in there. And there's a lot to go on. What's going on today in the Borderland, and still unwrapping what has been going on most recently, because there was that ever so slightly minor occurrence that, at the very least, even if you don't care about politics, screwed up traffic around town. The presidential visit, the motorcades going around, and still the aftermath of that, still breaking down more of what was discussed, what may or may not show up actually in policy, and the responses that have been talked about so far. So all those things that I promised to you yesterday, yes, we will get to today, because, it's almost more than we can get to in one show without doing the other things that we always also appreciate doing, which includes the discussion that we have with you all about your thoughts, opinions, feelings, etc., about what has been going on. And so kind of did further compounding it. On top of that, we had the Senate visit going on yesterday. Now, I wasn't able to do as much personal coverage of that yesterday because, well, we do this show on Mondays. But then we do have some more coverage and some more interesting points. Not the same kind of letter thing, but let's just say I see echoes of it and what has come out, particularly from U.S. Senator and Texas Senator John Cornyn. But that's not the only bit of politics we're going to be talking about today. The House of, well, the entire legislature, but specifically getting some interesting tweets out of the House of Representatives for the state of Texas today, as they have, of course, the Texas legislature beginning its the best way I can think of it, mad dash of roughly the first half of the year. I think it technically goes till like May, so cut it a little bit short, but it often has also gone longer when you factor in special sessions. But yes, the Texas legislature in session now, and the Speaker of the House, meet the new boss, same as the old boss kind of thing there, and a very stark difference, yes, from what was going on in the House of Representatives nationally, but some of the expectations, what's coming up, and, well, just a whole lot going on there that we will continue to be breaking down for you there. So, of course, we're going to be wanting to, have y'all's comments and thoughts on what we got going on for you today. So, of course, keep those comments going on over on the social media phone lines a little bit later, as we usually do. So, make no mistake there. Still back on track and talking about all the things that are affecting us. We're actually not going to have Robbie Gray in studio today because there's just too much to get to today. We will be talking with him next week, Robbie Gray, editor of El Paso Inc. So pushing it back a little bit from where we usually have of having him on first Tuesday of the month, because, well, it's been the start of the year, and then, aftermath of the presidential visit, there's a lot to get to there. And Robbie Florida is also waving in if I didn't mention that one already over on the social media. So, another busy day, and even beyond the stuff that I still feel the need to wrap up and talk even further about. I mean, new details even coming out today, specifically, including some of the pictures that we had mentioned of a book that Mayor Oscar Leeser had handed to President Biden. And a question that had come out about if that was going to be releasable. Our news partners over at KFOX 14 have a selection of the pictures that were actually included in the, again, printed, but to my understanding, fully physical book that was given to the president by Mayor Oscar Leeser from his own personal photography in the area a little bit earlier, so you can see those. We'll post up that link as well, so you can go and check it out and see what the perspective, at least 32 pictures that were fully released there, as well as, and they also got the letter that was sent. So there's even just a lot of documents to review with what we've been going through so far. But I want to start off with a couple of further things that were mentioned by during the brief aftermath of the visit yesterday, mentioned by Governor Greg Abbott, actually. because, well, there's more to come. I mean, this was only a stopover, of course, the presidential visit, as then President Biden goes on to have the summit with both leadership and officials from Mexico, but I do believe Canada is also going to be involved there. So there's a few extra points that he made, again, further on the tarmac that I wanted to make sure that we got to hear, most specifically about essentially what his expectations are. So this, again, speaking here as we were able to interview him, Governor Greg Abbott, on essentially what comes next and really the involvement of Mexico, which has been a more than a little bit significant concern when it comes to dealing with the immigration, borders, all of these combined situations.
Two things. One is you mentioned how Mexico is a big partner with Texas economically. Mexico must be a partner with Texas on the immigration process. As opposed to being a partner, what the government of Mexico did, they put migrants on buses and bused them to Juarez, where they would then cross illegally. That's reprehensible, if not illegal, and contrary to the protocols that exist between the United States and Mexico. AMLO must answer for being part of that process that bust those migrants to the United States border, knowing that they would come into our country illegally.
And again, there was decent documentation about what the governor was mentioning there, even videos that were available showing to some level of law enforcement escort. I mean, not exactly it's not clear which level it was, state or local, etc., but that those were being escorted essentially into Ciudad Juarez by, again, some level of official and law enforcement. So, yeah, that's, I think, at least part of what the governor is mentioning there. But, of course, Governor Greg Abbott has been very willing to, I don't know if carrot and stick is the right analogy there, but to incentivize is a probably very generous term to refer to some of the efforts that have been taken over previously and put forth by, I mean, think about Operation Lone Star in general, but then also the secondary security inspections for cargo crossing the border, particularly trucks that saw the number of bilateral cross-border agreements between essentially the state of Texas and the individual states that are on the Mexican side of the border or right across the Rio Grande from Texas. So I think that my analysis of his statement on that point is essentially more of that is possible on the table, if not necessarily given even further on there. And to Louis Panado also chiming in there, saying that this should not be given serious analysis. I'm sorry, if you don't like the people who are elected to these offices, that's something that you should have a discussion with your ballot box about. But if you don't think that they're consequential in any way, I don't even know where to begin to talk to you about that, because if you don't think that this is going to be having major impacts, even in the kind of soft way, and I mean, like, sure, legislation, changing policies, those could certainly have their own, and those are what we'd be looking at the most at, but even just the changing perceptions and what may be changing, if not totally laws, policy coming out of this is undeniably going to have an impact on this area. So if you want to do head in the sand kind of moment there, good luck with it. I hope you have fun, but otherwise we're going to talk about the things that are definitely important coming out of this. So a little bit further on what Governor Greg Abbott also said further on, essentially, because, okay, this whole visit that happened here is a prelude to what comes next. Again, the summits, meetings, etc., whatever you want to call it, going down in Mexico City. So I guess essentially beyond like the letter and those aspects of it, there were some further expectations Abbott had for, well, what he wants to see done during this, or at least the discussions and the way they're had between the presidents.
The president of Mexico is asking the president of the United States for economic assistance for things like energy as well as semiconductors. If he wants any type of economic assistance from the United States, he must provide immigration assistance to the United States by AMLO, the president of Mexico, stopping the illegal flow of illegal immigrants through his country into our country. That can all be stopped with one action by AMLO, and that's to stop the illegal flow. Thank y'all very much.
Yeah, he started my question there, yeah, we were on the tarmac and there was a lot of wind noise there, so hope that came through as well. Essentially, my takeaway from that is the governor saying that if there's going to be one to be these, not even just agreements, but things that are brought there, yeah, why go for it? And also, if you think, okay, Louis, I get that you have your perspective here, but literally, I got to ask you to be clear on the concept. Louis Panado here saying your analysis is a waste of airtime. why are you here, my dude? I'm the host of the show, in case you were confused about this. So yeah, I end up doing the majority of the talking here. So if you're wanting to not do that, there's literally a bunch of other shows that you can go on to online or other places. But if you want to talk about the things that do affect us in the borderland, yeah, that's what we do here. Again, you can disagree with me all you want, but if you're unclear on the concept, I really don't know what to do for you at that point. In any case, yeah, governor saying that essentially if you want these deals, if the Mexican government and president want these deals to be put into place, that there need to be concessions made. And that may be a part of the process. At the very least, the idea of bilateral agreements, not even just between, again, the individual states, but then also between the U.S. and Mexico driving this. Well, that could be seen as part of what has come in already, particularly when you get into the policy that was announced right before the presidential visit here to El Paso and the expansion of effectively Title 42 and the refocus on the CBP One app. That it's as close as I think you can get without physical infrastructure being in place into that like third country processing that has been brought up before, including by El Paso Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, involving a letter that she signed on to with other House colleagues last year, asking for those kind of things. So the fact that that has been moving towards policy, I'll take as a potential positive. Only time will tell if it actually works out or not, but something new, something coming up. At the very least, I'll be willing to look at it. And, well, then again, we'll just have to keep our eye on it in a lot of other ways. Now, of course, there were other visits going on and already overdue for that first break of this hour right now. So we'll come back and talk more about this, but also talk about what's been going on with the Senate visit in town. Some pretty similar-ish kind of points being brought up. No surprise to be had there. But then also what are the things, the questions I was able to ask of other local leaders and elected officials on essentially the aftermath and situations surrounding this. Specifically, have the question that I was able to ask Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, as promised. We'll certainly bring that up, as well as some quick questions and answers that I got from County Judge Ricardo Samaniego and the new CEO of the El Paso Chamber, Andrea Hutchins, as she's getting rolling, and essentially how all of these impacts affect not even just politics, populations, but business and those aspects in our region. So yeah, it's another busy day, it's another busy week, and it's never not that way, but this is just cranked up to a whole nother level. So taking that first break of this hour right now, you are of course tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Back after this break with more phone lines, open a little bit later, comments still going on. And yeah, if you want to talk about the things that affect us here in the borderland, you're in the right place. But in the meantime, stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A stalled semi was blocking a couple of lanes. Gateway East at Airway's just been moved. There's still a backup that remains back to Trowbridge with 5 to 10 minute delays. Injury accident, Edgemere eastbound at the Loop. An accident on Donovan Drive south of Red. And an injury accident in North Carolina at Giles. Use Yarborough or North Loop Drive as your alternates. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Winning $1,000 incites all kinds of emotions.
Are you kidding? No way.
What to do with it is up to you.
We're going to Key West. That's it. What are you, nuts? We're going to Atlantic City.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 with inflation compensation.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 every hour from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Enter the nationwide keyword at ktsmradio.com for your chance to win. Brought to you by Sunland Park, Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, where buying a car is fun.
This report is sponsored by Texas Health and Human Services. Life can take a turn for anyone, and if it has for you, remember that there's so much for you to turn to. We all need supportive people and healthy outlets in our lives, so we don't have to face hard times alone. Visit turntosupportstx.org for the help that's right for you.
This is the Piketon Massacre, Return to Pike County.
New details into what was uncovered at the gruesome crime scenes in Pike County.
Accused murderer George Wagner faces a judge and jury.
No Wagner family DNA was found at the crime scene.
Will he face the death penalty or will he walk free?
This case is about to blow wide open.
Listen to the Piketon Massacre Season 4 Trials Begin on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey Texas! This time of year is all about coming together and enjoying time-honored holiday traditions or starting your own. This winter, Make sure your fellow Texans, especially those with a serious mental health condition, know how to stay informed and protected from increased COVID-19 risks associated with serious mental illness. Getting vaccinated is pro-Texan protection against COVID-19. Visit www.vaccines.gov/search to find a vaccine provider near you.
El Paso. Does getting credit up to $150 a month to spend on everyday needs like food and over-the-counter products or to pay for utility bills sound good? Then ask about a United Healthcare Dual Complete Plan. You'll keep all your Medicaid benefits and get more benefits at no cost to you. Call United Healthcare today at 1-855-UHC-MORE. That's 1-855-UHC-MORE. Benefits, features, and or devices vary by plan and area. Limitations and exclusions apply. Food, OTC, and utility benefits have expiration time frames. Call your plan or review your evidence of coverage EOC for more information.
Make a New Year's resolution that's easy to keep. Help protect your identity and finances with LifeLock Identity Theft Protection. LifeLock detects identity threats you may miss on your own. And if you become a victim, LifeLock will work to fix it. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses. But LifeLock by Norton makes it easy to help protect yourself. Join now and save up to 25% off your first year. Go to LifeLock.com. Use promo code NEWS.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We are up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one. That's where most of the comments come in anyway. The one we've had up the longest, so not surprising that way. But you can also, again, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under similar names, Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk, or if you in between, it just depends. If you can find us and you're hearing us, able to comment that way, as Victor Navarrete, Bernadette Bandicola, Louis Pinado, Barbara Carrasco, John Brazelton, RJ J, Robbie Flores, Ida Beza Gardner, and more are doing, and dropping those likes and reacts, including Angel Rueda, Amber Bond, Flaco Jimenez, Monica Cervantes, all those. Again, if you're here and you're wanting to talk about the things, you are RJ saying YouTube is lonely. I understand there. I mean, it's just the way that it is here. People participate in the way that works the best for them here. So yeah, there's certainly a lot more to discuss there. So one more thing I want to make sure to mention here, at the very least in this case, that because I definitely find it related to what the governor was talking about when he was in town surrounding the presidential visit. Of course, we did have yesterday the 8 senators, bipartisan group, yes, both from Texas, both of the ones from Arizona, and then a few other places from around the country as well. There was one very interesting point here, brought up further, good reporting on this by our news partners over at KFOX 14, about what was going on with some of the statements happening afterwards, specifically Texas Senator John Cornyn, saying that, bringing out his own analysis that's, well, I'll let you find the similarities to other previous statements for yourself here, but a few concrete steps, 5 of them to be specific. 1, begin utilizing Title 8 expedited removal for all adults and accompanied children encountered at the border, these being steps to stop the current crisis at the border under current law. Number 2, detain all immigrants allowed under current statute pending removal or immigration court proceedings. 3, expedite asylum hearings before a judge for those who are claiming asylum at the border so that these hearings are occurring in less than a month. Prioritize them over currently backlogged cases. 4, negotiate safe third country agreements and removal agreements with Mexico and as many Central American countries as possible. And number 5, do not end Title 42 until at least these 4 steps are achieved. So, I mean, they visited a few different areas, met with more of the city officials, including Mayor Oscar Leeser, which made his statements to the assembled group there. They did meet at the, I guess, now former Bassett Middle School. Again, the titles here somewhat elude me a little bit, given the fact that it's now being used as some of these shelter areas as well, though there's been a little bit of back and forth on that in its own way. But again, I see some similarities, at least in my mind, between what Cornyn brought forth and essentially the way it was stated in the governor's letter that was handed to President Joe Biden, and also clarification in case that hadn't come through from yesterday. He also did hand a copy of that to Congresswoman Veronica Escobar. So maybe a slightly different tone to it, because the letter, I think, was frustrated would be a generous way to probably put it, the tone that was in the governor's letter. But, you can have your own analysis the way they phrase things here. Victor Navarrete saying overall that not sure I see the point of the president's border visit when he and the Democrat establishment keep saying the border is and has been secure. I think the quibbling that comes up now is on the idea of operational control, or some of that more specific phrasing on is there, besides crossings, crime coming across, those kind of things. So I think that's the sticking point at the moment. But the idea of crisis, at the very least, I haven't heard many, let's say, reasonable statements lately on the idea that there's no problems at the border, or even the quibbling over the phrase crisis, because it just, that bucket has not held water for a long time, frankly, and it might as well just be a mess sieve at this point. So yeah, I think that there is some level of, okay, sure, there's a problem, but the finding the actual solutions for it is not so much meshing as it is still continuing to kind of butt heads. What I will say is that even if you don't see necessarily okay, what are they going to do about it? Again, kind of what I called last week before it was totally clear that the president was going to be visiting the borderland specifically, is the policy that has begun to come out. Again, the 4 additional countries that will be more or less in the same boat as the Venezuelan points of origin people, of being kind of immediately expelled, kind of expanded under Title 42, but I think they're also putting this under Title 8, which technically takes a little bit more time, but none of this is simple, but that's the simplest way I can think to put it. So further points that were made about essentially what can happen on the legal aspect of it. That was something that Congresswoman Veronica Escobar had said during the kind of post-visit news conference that happened yesterday, 2 days ago at this point, at the end of Sunday, and essentially she was honestly calling out the lack of lawmakers previously to have taken many concrete steps and actually passing legislation on this. Now, of course, we have a different makeup of the House coming in, so that was the question I put to her, is essentially, what are the odds of something actually going through? Because given the split control of the chambers, Republicans with their small majority in the House and the Democrats with their small majority in the Senate, given the very different tangents and approaches that happen with this, was the likelihood of this actually ending up coming through? And at least in parts, this is what, again, El Paso Congresswoman Veronica Escobar had to say.
So, Andrew, you saw, and America saw, that the Republican Party, which had months to organize its leadership, failed to elect a leader on day one, dragged it out for 4 days, 15 votes, ended up almost in a fist fight on the floor of the House on the 2nd anniversary of January 6th. That's the Republican majority that we have today.
So I'm not going to call it an optimistic statement right to begin off the bat, the first part of the answer to me, but they just should go on to say about essentially what a roadmap could look like to see something done. I'll let you make your own judgment on the realistic nature of it.
Here's my hope, and this is part of why I'm eager to talk to Senator Coons. If the Senate, with its Democratic majority and with a handful of Republican senators, can come together with something that's broad enough and effective enough, my hope is over time, we are able to pull in our 212 Democrats, hopefully it's soon to be 213 after a special election, that we can pull in some moderate Republicans to address this. Everything that Americans have been seeing on TV, everything that El Pasoans have been witnessing firsthand must be a wake-up call for our members of Congress, and I hope it is.
So call it a roadmap if you want. I think that, again, the tenor of this whole session, which, by the way, an interesting note that was brought up here not too long before our time here, is that the new representative for Southern New Mexico, Gabe Vasquez from New Mexico's 2nd Congressional District, actually put forth his first piece of legislation in Congress as the McCarthy Act, a bill that will delay the start of the House's members' paychecks in a new Congress until after a speaker is chosen. Not sure if that would end up having to go into constitutional changes, though I'm sure they did some amount of research on it. So if this is going to be going back to what the Congresswoman Escobar had to say, I mean, it's a possibility. I guess it's a little bit early to tell exactly how the rest of this, very tumultuous start of this session of Congress nationally. So I'm not going to hold my breath on that being an immediate roadmap. I think things will probably change. I would still very much like it if immigration legislation can move its way anyway substantively forward, because that's, I will agree, is at least part of the problem that we keep encountering when it comes to this issue. The fact that we just don't have the laws that have been more responsive. And I mean, yes, Title VIII and other parts of it have been around for quite some time, but the fact that we haven't seen responsiveness or real big changes into it, again, you literally have to go back to the Reagan administration, is more than a little bit of a problem here. So, well, we got to take that next break right now. We got more to play for you, more response from local leaders and analysis, including things of questions that y'all have brought up, including what about the efforts that have been going on at the local level outside of the national? Has that been any part of this issue or contributing to it in any way? So we'll go ahead and take that next break right now. You are, of course, tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Phone calls a little bit later, opening up at the end of next segment, as we usually do. Comments still coming in, addressing the most relevant ones as most part. But in any case, stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
With your CBS 4 News Update, I'm Amanda Guillen. The Border Patrol confirms a deadly crash in Santa Teresa involved a human smuggling attempt. The agency says the crash happened just before 11 last night on the Pete Dominici Highway in New Mexico. The Border Patrol says an agent turned on his sirens for a traffic stop, but the driver sped away and rolled over, killing 2 people inside the vehicle and injuring 8 others. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has now opened a human smuggling investigation while the Border Patrol reviews the crash. With your CBS 4 News Update, I'm Amanda Guillen. For the latest news, sports, and weather updates, make sure to visit our website, cbs4local.com, live at any time.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
A stalled Freightliner on Gateway East is restricting travel. Traffic's being moved over to the left lane at Airway Boulevard, causing a backup. I-10 eastbound at Piedras, a stalled vehicle is blocking the turnaround lane. Montana Avenue eastbound from the Gateway over to Zaragoza is an 11-minute delay. And it's a 6-minute delay northbound Mesa Street from the downtown exits to the 10. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Cold one for tonight. Lows in the 30s and 40s, partly to mostly cloudy skies. And then we go windy and cooler for our Wednesday. We're talking about west winds tomorrow, 25 to 35 miles per hour. After the winds calm down, we'll see cooler weather returning for a Thursday with a high around 60, slightly warmer here Friday with a high around 62 degrees. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Progressive Commercial Insurance can protect your small business with over 30 coverage options, an easy-to-use mobile app, personalized discounts, and more. Get a quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations.
Paid for by government.com.
Did you hear? A recent stash of $10 gold Liberty coins from the 1800s has been found. These gorgeous gold coins are as bright and shiny as the day they were struck in the late 1800s, and less than 50 of these gold coins are available. Coin experts are calling this gold find an incredible opportunity. Call 1-800-456-2466, and you are guaranteed a $10 gold Liberty coin minted by the U.S. Mint in the 1800s. But with extremely limited availability, you must call now. These gold Liberty coins from the 1800s are still in uncirculated condition. That is history you can hold in your hand. To learn more, call 1-800-456-2466. Call now and you'll receive a free American Coin Collector's Bonus Package, a $40 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-456-2466 now to secure your $10 gold Liberty coins dated from the 1800s before they sell out. That's 1-800-456-2466.
Cash Blitz scratch tickets from the Texas Lottery are here. Play for a shot at top prizes from $5,000 to $1 million. Plus, enter to win a VIP iHeart trip and more at TexasLottery.com.
Life can take a turn for anyone, and if it has for you, remember that there's so much for you to turn to. We all need supportive people and healthy outlets in our lives, so we don't have to face hard times alone. Visit turntosupportstx.org for the help that's right for you. This report is sponsored by Texas Health and Human Services.
Let's talk about America. Not taxes or tweets or the issues that divide us, but how incredible our country is. Whether you come home to a crowded city street or sleepy small town, everyone deserves to live in a clean, green, and thriving community. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working with millions of people like you to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify communities. Learn more at kab.org. Together, we can do beautiful things.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways that you can chime in on the show. I mean, pretty much all those pages. Twitter, again, is its own animal, but it just means we can't pop the comments up on screen like we do with other ones of them here, including such as RJ's statement saying, well, Escobar admits it's a problem. Biden will be so disappointed. Breaking Democrat tells the truth. I guess you agree with the statements, maybe is what I'm going to take away from that is. But again, an honest analysis is honestly a pretty important thing to me, and cutting through kind of the clutter of the politics around it. Not always possible, but at least something we like to try to strive for anyway. And at least one other comment here. Louis Pinato talking about what we were in the previous segment about my statement was not a personal attack, but rather illuminating the futility of analysis of a dog and pony show. The politicos are doing their theater of the absurd. Like, I get what you're saying about the... that's part of the reason that I wasn't trying to chase the motorcade around town or trying to do all the photo ops, all the optics. Like, yeah, those parts of it, I mean, I'm not surprised that particularly like national media, though, as a side note, I'm 90% sure there was a German news crew that was both at the arrival and at the post-news conference I was at as well, which is just kind of interesting to me. And the thing we would usually talk about anyway, about how El Paso is being portrayed if it weren't for the issues. But that's why we're not focusing on just the optics. I mean, where he visited is important enough, but the real things that we're focusing on here is, okay, what substantively is actually going to come out of this? And so the discussions right now are kind of the best effort that we have, but we could definitely see some of this, hopefully, knock on wood, turn into things like legislation or further border security policy and immigration. So the fact that there was that bit of policy that came out, again, the expansion effectively of Title 42, though could also be argued as Title 8 and the CBP 1 app for their expulsions, the way that is being managed is probably one of the more consequential things out of the whole visit, even if it came right before the visit. And of course, what's coming out of all of the meetings going on down in Mexico City will be a further reason and could see more of these efforts being moved. And so that's why we're talking primarily about that. We're not trying to draw the map for you of where he's been. So, I mean, sure, if you want to say that the entire visit was pointless, you're entitled to your opinion there, but everything surrounding it and the actual, again, bits of policy that came out, I think, are the most key part and what we'll keep focusing on anyway. So going along with this, we also have Mondo Moncada. Hello to you as well, talking about there. And if you're bringing up other things besides or want to talk about here, we will take phone calls a little bit later, but at least got a few more things to get into, because beyond even the statements and the interviews we've had so far, I was able to talk with a couple more of our local elected officials that I'll make sure we include kind of in our final wrap up as we are getting through all of this, is that there are, well, more impacts to come from here. And one question that you all have been kind of asking, maybe not directly me, but it's definitely been coming up to me, but has been wanting to just posit it to some of our elected officials, essentially about the efforts that are going on right now. Is this something that is, I mean, the idea of hospitality and the aspects of it, is this something that could be having any impact on the flow that we are seeing specifically to our area right now, particularly if you take it in the kind of the context of what has happened previously in like Del Rio and Eagle Pass, where we saw coordinated efforts on the parts of, you know, groups of individuals of usually common origin points. And like Eagle Pass, they were largely of Haitian original origin point, could more accurately, I think, be called expatriate communities at that point, that then coordinated a attempt that they did in that area at that time. And so could that be seen here, or is any of the efforts that are happening beyond some of the national things, policy that may or may not change, may or may not come the laws that may or may not happen. So I was able to speak as part of that news conference that happened after the visit with El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego about essentially are the efforts that we are seeing on the ground here that are being specifically being put up by the city, county, other groups. Is that a possible contribution to him? Has that been brought up to him? Because y'all have asked me that. Has it been brought up to him? And what is his perspective on it? So here is what he had to say in answer to that.
The idea of drawing, for example, when we started having the buses that were going to New York, we drew a lot of people to come in, and they're looking to see if there's anybody that's going to be willing to help them. So they'll find different ways. I mean, people do not travel so many from that kind of a distance and then decide we're going to stop. But the only thing they'll do is they'll sort of move in different directions. If it's Del Rio, or they have to move into San Diego, and we're one nation, and we should look at ourselves as one nation. And so one of the things actually was helping was there was sort of like a funnel coming in through one area, and it was more manageable. As soon as they put the barbed wire, they start moving further out and then coming in from the outside, and then it's really difficult to be able to coordinate and to get them in the right situation for keeping them out of the neighborhoods. And so there'll always be a draw. Right now, unfortunately, the world is in chaos economically. There's a lot of the people want to come into the United States. So we do the best we can. For example, when they don't have sponsorships, they say they don't have sponsors and they want to get on the bus free. We tell them no. Well, let's work for a sponsor. Let's work for a sponsor. And pretty soon we find out that they can get a sponsor. So it's up to us as well that we do make them accountable to the things that they need to do to make it easier for us. Interesting enough, at Sacred Heart, they were saying they didn't want to be a burden. What could they do? They wanted to sweep. They wanted brooms. They wanted... And that was very encouraging. I mean, I'm talking 50 at a time telling me, bring us some brooms, bring us some bags that we could put stuff in there. We do not want to be perceived as a burden on your community. So they're more sensitive. I think if people really get to know their intentions and you see them face to face and they tell you their stories and what they'd like to do. I visit a lot of the unaccompanied children leadership programs, 300-400 of them. You'd be amazed at the love they have for this country. They want to be singers. They want to. The young lady told me she wanted to be a forensic officer, and then it sort of surprised me because I guess they watch TV or whatever it is. But like I said, it's not so much that we draw. It's more of coming in this direction and then figuring out where's the best way. So we're not trying to be a beacon of hope. They already see the United States as a beacon. Once they cross over, they get on their knees and they thank God that they've been able to come to the United States, and it's very, very impressive. I mean, it makes me more appreciative of my country because they really have a deep sense of love for who we are. So, like I said, we're not trying to draw them in, but they're very excited about who we are as a country.
So again, that El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego there. So based on his answer there, I wanted to further delve into the idea of, okay, so has essentially the ways that there have been those temporary barriers that have been put up, particularly from Operation Lone Star, etc., that has that kind of, in his mind, contributed to this issue of making it that it's no longer a controlled thing, but that the pressure is still there effectively. To go back to the analogy that we have used sometimes of, a hose and a spigot that, sure, you can keep moving buckets to empty the hose. You can try to shut it off, but that analogy does leave out the fact of the matter, or the idea that there's still pressure on the back end of it that isn't just being immediately controlled by turning off of it. So here's what he had to say kind of on the idea of what he would like to see when it comes to these policies and particularly their impact locally.
With Title 42, we backed up hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people, and then that was difficult for us. The natural process is, obviously, we're waiting for reforms. We're waiting for individuals to be able to work. That's going to be very essential. I can tell you, they mentioned today that 15 states actually lost population. They're suffering with not having the workforce. So those are the things that we need to look at. We also need to help their countries where they can do better by staying there. I worked in the Maquiladora when there was 350,000. They didn't come across. I mean, they came by over here and back and shopped and went back. So once they're happy and they've got a better job. So it's a big thing that we got to do. A lot of moving parts. And one of them is make them more successful. We'd spend less money in helping them have jobs in their own communities or make them a better country. And then also the negotiations. I was just saying earlier that our president is going to see the president of Mexico. He hasn't been very engaging in Chihuahua. I mean, Juarez is as isolated from federal government as we are from the state government. They're not getting the support. They're not listening to them, and that bothers me because everybody thought that this particular Mexican president Obrador was going to be very different. And we haven't seen that he's engaged in Chihuahua. We've seen it in the pandemic. We're trying to cooperate with that. We were actually trying to help them because of things they weren't doing for their own community. So that relationship is going to be very important. And, sometimes they're busing people all the way across over here. And then, that doesn't help, right? Because then that's creating a huge draw. They talked about having in Guatemala and in Mexico sort of a little space there that we could receive them. So a lot of different things that we need to do. And like I said, we do not manage the amount of people, but we can manage how we handle it. And I think El Paso will always be a process. We're El Paso del Norte from the beginning. It's a pathway, and I think we've done it. I think we do it very well. They're not going to stay here. And it behooves us that we're able to coordinate with the rest of the country. Move them in the right direction. And I think that's going to be our lane, processing them and getting them to the rest of the country.
So again, interesting perspective there on essentially the interaction of the policies here and what the local efforts are. A major reason that this is an important question in my mind to ask the county judge, Ricardo Samaniego, is that there have been, of course, more than a little bit of things that are able to be put in. And I mean, the decisions that are made at the local level, he's definitely at the helm of a subsection of them. We've talked a lot about city efforts as well, but I mean, among other things, there's also the one of the visits that did happen, just as a matter of course, and as an important side note to this, to the county facility, I believe over near the county Coliseum. So yeah, that's one of the aspects of it here. So his perspective on what they want to see done and how they might be continuing to manage it, the local community part of it, I find probably very important there. John Brazelton, among others here, Make Rios as well, not totally fair or favorable to it. Particularly John Brazelton saying, "Hey, Judge, those are American jobs that left America because American corporations didn't want to pay decent wages." So there is, of course, another aspect entirely beyond the political side of this that's can be decently got into. I mean, I've mentioned about local elected officials as well as local leaders, and I'm not using that as just there's some other people who weren't elected to office, because there have been some who are now, present in our area. The El Paso Chamber of Commerce had a new CEO put into place. I think it was late last year, essentially. And Andrea Hutchins, she was also present and a part of some of those conversations, as well as the news conference that happened afterwards. I was able to ask her a few more concise questions, particularly along the lines of, when these situations are occurring here, when it comes to trying to recruit business. We have talked at length previously about the whole nearshoring or reshoring phenomena that we have, I would argue, definitely been seeing in our area. So when it comes to having situations like these, the immigration, border security, and therefore what has therefore caused the visit going on, how exactly does that impact it? Here's what she had to say.
Absolutely. So when you talk about the optics of it, I think that's the real issue. When we are courting those companies that are interested in moving to our region, oftentimes they're afraid because what they see on the news is, doom and gloom and scary things and people scaling walls, as opposed to, folks who are truly coming here for an asylum and who could be part of our very much needed workforce. So from an optics standpoint, it is definitely impacting things.
Again, interesting perspective there, because I mean, there's got to be some level of assumption here. One thing she talks about later that I've certainly heard from people and individuals is, I mean, at Fort Bliss, there are some people who feel afraid to leave posts because the news that they see without necessarily the context of what it actually means in this community. Part of the reason we want to make sure we're always talking about these things, because of the way they're portrayed and the way we are sometimes told to think doesn't necessarily actually ending up matching up with reality. So I was able to ask her a little bit further about, I mean, she is new-ish in the position, still arguably getting settled with it. So in relation to all these situations going on, the optics, the challenges that they're going into, what are some of the starting level efforts that she is getting going with?
Well, as you probably know, El Paso is actually one of the safest communities in the country. Whether there's a issue going on like what we've had at the border here recently, or maybe in 6 months from now, we have historically maintained a very, very safe community, and that's often due to our local law enforcement, but also our culture. And so our culture is something that we do try and really educate people on, and we try and kind of spread the word about what a wonderful community El Paso is. But to be frank, sometimes we're really working uphill against the media, right? So the sensationalist news is generally speaking what leads. One of the things that I'd also like to point out, so I'm also a military spouse, and oftentimes military families have some concerns about coming here. They see things that are happening on the other side of the border. They see the things that are happening with the migrant community. And so overall, it does impact the economy in El Paso. And so I think continuing to just remind people El Paso exists because we were the path to the north, and we were legitimately the path to prosperity. So when you think about why people are coming to El Paso, it's generally to try and achieve the American dream. So that's a message that I'm trying to get out on a consistent basis.
There was an interesting part, particularly in the wrap up, the initial part of the news conference, that the CEO, president and CEO, technically, the El Paso Chamber, I want to make sure to give the full and correct title there, about the idea of essentially workforce solutions. I don't think anyone in this area and in many different parts of the country would be unfamiliar with the fact that there have been I can't think of a business that I've been to lately that doesn't have help wanted signs, wanting to be, positions to be filled, etc. We've seen some definite changes into that. So there were some things that she mentioned about essentially workforce, or the ability to have and recruit it. Now, that's in a couple of ways, that was an interesting thing to bring up in this circumstance, because, well, as you heard from the county judge, one of the major focuses of the local efforts is essentially to keep anyone crossing the border, whatever the circumstance it is, moving, because if it's involved in this whole immigration and border security issue, because that's kind of been the policy here. But then, of course, there are some things coming out with that CBP-1 app. We'll see what the actual backlog on that looks like, with the idea of essentially temporary work authorization for a couple of years. That comes to mind. But here's essentially what you said about kind of longer term solutions when it also comes to addressing this issue.
Well, I certainly don't know that there's any real solutions, given the fact that our policy really does prevent people from staying and working in this country. However, that being said, El Paso is a community of immigrants. That overwhelmingly we have a Hispanic population, and that in this community, there are a number of individuals who are first or even second generation Americans. And so I think welcoming people from other countries into El Paso, especially those from our friends in Central and South America, is really kind of part of the way of life here in El Paso. And I think from a national workforce perspective, there's a lot that we could do along the lines of processing, educating, and really helping folks to find their way here in the United States, and then potentially share those, more educated workforce with the rest of the country.
So again, that was El Paso Chamber President and CEO Andrea Hutchins. First chance I've gotten the opportunity to speak with her. I'm sure we'll probably focus more on that as a business focus, what's going on with that community, and economy in El Paso is definitely important to us here. But with that, we got to take that next break right now. And with that, we will also go ahead and open up those phone lines available now. So if you want to call in and add your 2 cents in particularly the second hour of the show, the number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A stalled Freightliner on Gateway East at Airway Boulevard has traffic moving over to the left to get by. Montana Avenue eastbound, Gateway to the Zaragoza, that's a 15-minute delay. Slow traffic northbound Mesa Street from the downtown exits up to the 10 Desert Boulevard with a 4-minute delay. Police still working an injury accident, Geronimo Drive at Gateway West, and there's an accident Donovan south of East Red. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Dell Technologies. Dell Technologies provides growing businesses with tools to do incredible things, because we believe there's an innovator in all of us. For advice on smart PCs powered by Intel V Pro that's built for business, call a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL.
How a busy baker beat back foot pain. Meet Sanja.
Brownies, cupcakes, cookies. I love to bake. There have been times when I've been on my feet for at least 12 hours.
And that's how things went from sweet to sour.
I had excruciating pain in both feet to a point where I had to limp out of the kitchen.
So she called up a former foot pain sufferer, her big sister.
She told me, you need to go to the Good Feet store and get some arch supports.
Smart lady.
It was an awesome experience. Scott took great care of my feet.
He's the arch support specialist who fitted her.
He was very patient, very knowledgeable. Scott was the man.
Now Sanja can have her cake and bake it too.
Oh yeah, my feet are very happy now.
You're gonna have to make some cookies for Scott.
I've already done that.
Of course you did. See how arch supports work for you. Stop in or schedule your free fitting at goodfeet.com.
Airway Boulevard at I-10.
On a busy construction site, things can be misinterpreted. Bring in the bulldozer can sound a lot like
building looks mediocre.
Designs need a do-over.
or even
Install a roller coaster? Okay.
be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk, from the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building. Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, can we actually bring in the bulldozer?
Why do you buckle up when you get in your truck? Maybe you do it to get home safely to your loved ones, or because you take your job as a professional driver seriously, or because you want to follow the law to stay safe. Remember, it doesn't matter how long you've been driving, or even if it's a quick trip. Wear your seatbelt to stay safe on the road. Learn more at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. That's www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. And remember to buckle up when you get behind the wheel. Paid for by FMCSA.
Hey Texas, did you know that individuals living with serious mental illness are more susceptible to severe COVID-19? Visit covidvaccine.texas.gov for vaccination resources to help reduce the risk and keep yourself and your fellow Texans informed and protected this holiday season. Stay healthy, Texas.
Progressive Commercial Insurance can protect your small business with over 30 coverage options, an easy-to-use mobile app, personalized discounts, and more. Get a quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. We're actually having a really short time this segment. So we're still got those phone lines open, full up already, we're getting into subjects today. So yeah, that's not surprising to me. But we'll be taking more of those in the top of the hour here. So if you want to squeeze on, again, hint is to do it right after a previous call ends. That number is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso and the top of the hour news here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
All lanes are blocked on Gateway East at Airway due to a stalled freight liner. Traffic's backed up to Trowbridge exit right now. Slow traffic on Montana Avenue eastbound from the Gateway to Zaragoza with 15-minute delays. The spur is starting to slow down. Liberty Expressway eastbound from the Gateway to the Loop, it's a 5-minute delay. And an injury accident, Geronimo Drive, southbound at Gateway West. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Big news. The 2024 election could be America's last one. That's the shocking conclusion of famed best-selling author David Horowitz. In his new book, The Final Battle, David Horowitz reveals a secret war underway in America. Democrats, woke culture, and a new generation are destroying our traditional culture and ending our freedoms. Horowitz says their plan is taking place in our schools, our churches, even in our military. This week, you need to watch David Horowitz on The Chris Salcedo Show as he reveals the real threat of Biden, Obama, the big media, and more. Horowitz names names. So tune in today to Newsmax for Chris Salcedo's special with David Horowitz. And make sure you get a copy of The Final Battle. Newsmax calls it the most important book of 2023. It's in bookstores everywhere. Or check out the free offer and save $28. Just go online to finalbattle611.com. That's finalbattle611.com.
News on the hour and a half.
Today.
Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
And
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The White House has yet to answer why it failed to publicly disclose classified documents that were found in a private office previously used by President Biden. The documents, which were from Biden's time as vice president, were found about a week before last year's midterm elections by Biden's lawyers, who then notified the National Archives. The matter only became public Monday due to news reports. Power crews are fanning out across Northern California in what PG&E calls their largest ever storm response. As of midday, about 155,000 customers were still without power after last night's wild weather, the latest in a series of powerful storms.
The storm activity included wind gusts exceeding 70 miles per hour and more than 100 cloud-to-ground lightning strikes.
PG&E executive Teresa Alvarado says crews are now working to repair the new damage from the most recent event. The University of Idaho students are returning to campus after an arrest was made in the murder of 4 students in November. Classes are set to begin Wednesday, and the school has promised new security measures to keep students safe. There will be more safety officers on campus and increased police patrols around the school in nearby neighborhoods. Wall Street is closing higher after Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's speech. Liz Warner reports.
Stocks rose in afternoon trading after Powell avoided commenting on future rate policy in remarks to Sweden's Riksbank. Investors are now awaiting the start of fourth quarter earnings season and Thursday's CPI report. At the closing bell today, the Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 186 points, the S&P 500 added 27 points, and the Nasdaq rose 107 points.
The United States is facing more than $165 billion in damages after 18 extreme weather events last year. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. The CEO of JP Morgan Chase is walking back predictions of an economic hurricane this year. CEO Jamie Dimon now says there may be more storm clouds on the economic horizon, but he's more optimistic for the American consumer. He originally said the hurricane was taking the shape of a hard-hitting recession. Prince Harry's tell-all memoir, Spare, is now on shelves, and many are talking about it. David Folk Thomas reports.
The book promises to reveal the circumstances of Harry and his wife Meghan's departure from their royal duties, as well as rarely publicized details about his extended family. New Yorkers are divided on whether Harry should be airing his family's dirty laundry.
I guess I think about my family, and I'm glad that those things get to happen behind closed doors.
Well, they said they were doing that to claim their own narrative, which I think is true. It's important. If they don't speak up, a lot goes unsaid.
The many topics covered in the book include Harry's sibling rivalry with Prince William and his fractured relationship with his father.
The harmful language guide has been taken off of Stanford University's website. Jordan Christmas has more.
After pushback, Stanford University officials have decided to do away with the newly made harmful language guide on their website. The guide was harshly criticized, mostly on the internet, for going too far and trying to dictate politically correct speech in professional settings. University spokesman Steve Gallagher said that while it was created as a way to promote a more inclusive and welcoming environment for people of all walks of life, the guide missed the intended mark.
AMC is revealing the release date for its new series, Lucky Hank. The series stars Bob Odenkirk as the chairman of a badly underfunded college in Pennsylvania. Mireille Enos stars as Hank's wife, Lily, who begins to question the path she's on as her husband's life starts to unravel. Lucky Hank will debut March 19th on AMC. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Green. That's green. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Progressive Commercial Insurance flexes to fit your business needs, from quick repairs to adjustable coverages and even payment options. Progressive Commercial makes it easy to get what you need. Quote today in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com.
Welcome to the CPAP Games live from the Hayes bedroom. It's another eventful night, Bruce.
It sure is, Ron. Steve has been struggling with this CPAP.
His wife, Michelle, is trying to contain her rage.
Michelle throws an elbow.
She's leaving for the couch.
Steve should get Inspire.
Absolutely, Bruce. Inspire is a sleep apnea treatment that gives you comfortable, restful sleep with the click of a remote. There's no mask and no hose. Just sleep.
Learn more at inspiresleep.com.
Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you and review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
Follow the Bible in a Year with Jack Graham podcast today.
Begin your New Year's resolution with the Bible and see why millions have already started Bible in a Year with Jack Graham.
This podcast was created to help you solidify your faith as you experience the story of the Bible through live action recordings and emotional orchestral music.
Listen to Bible in a Year with Jack Graham on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
So I'm a dog, and I just got adopted by this new human guy, and I'm starting to wonder how he got along without me. I mean, okay, something as simple as walking around the block. He's got this leash thing, and he puts me on one end and him on the other, and I'm just taking him around. I think he's afraid of getting lost. Without that leash and me guiding him along, I don't think he'd find his way back home. But it's kind of cute.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages that we are up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. There's certainly a lot of conversation going on there, but just know that if you're here to actually talk about the things that affect us here in the Borderland, bring up many of the issues that do is here, or particularly the things we're talking about today, there's still a lot of aftermath of the visits here, or more specifically, the policies that are being discussed, and we could definitely see the very least being debated coming out of it. That's our real focus here. The specific places people went are informative, but not really the meat that you really want to get to when we're talking about these situations. So we do, of course, have the phone lines open now, full up at the moment, but if you want to get on a little bit later to add your 2 cents that way, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. So let's get straight back to that right now. We do have Andrew on the west side with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. For all the talk and editorials that are coming out from everybody, the only way that this immigration crisis is going to be solved is by Mexico, number one, cooperating, and the United States putting pressure on these countries where these individuals are immigrating from. And I'm saying economic pressure for them to do something.
That is definitely a portion of what's being talked here, and I know that the cooperation of Mexico, that's kind of the pressure behind the spigot, that analogy of, the whole this, open water faucet in the backyard, dealing with it in buckets, or by closing the faucet. It doesn't deal with the pressure on it, and I think Mexico and their policies on it are a major factor of it. And without having essentially their buy-in, however that looks like here, of course, very different tangents taken during at least that were done during the Trump administration. We'll see what actually comes out from this Biden visit, because it's been discussed. I will say that AMLO is more than a little bit of a wild card in all of this, because he seems to vacillate. So maybe not even a wild card, but not quite a loose cannon, because the way he's actually holding on to positions and vacillating on them, and how stable he seems to kind of vary based on maybe not exactly the day, but close enough. I think you get the idea of what I'm getting at there, that it's level for concern in its own right here. So if it actually comes out of it, yeah, we'll see. But if they continue to allow it to go along with, because, sure, there have been, Title 42, when the policy was still firmly in place, actually part of it, where they were cooperating with it. But then, of course, there was the busing that the governor mentioned in the clip we played at the top of the first hour. So if they're willing to play ball or actually fully commit to it is a major question that I'm not sure even one set of meetings could provide an answer for.
Correct. Now, what we need to do is put the door back on the hinges. Biden was the one that invited people from all over the world to come in, and this is not fake news or anything. I saw the video clip. Okay, I saw the video clip. Another thing, right away he signed over 14 executive orders getting rid of policies in place by the previous administration. One of them was MMP.
Mm-hmm. Or the MPP, Migrant Protection Protocols. I think is the one you mean, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Now, we're not going to get any type of immigration reform, out of this next Congress. I can tell you that. Why? Because what the Democrats want, and I'll say it again, what the Democrats want is a instant pathway to citizenship for these individuals. Schumer made no attempt to hide that right after the election. He made no attempt, if you remember.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at when saying that it's a split chambers. We got, of course, Republicans in control of the House and Democrats in control of the Senate. Though I will also say that saying that as not meant to be as an absolute is not that there's dominating control. I mean, the margins are small enough in either chamber for each of those parties that one or a handful in the respective cases of people doing upstarts or wanting to do something different and throwing the wrench in it could certainly either stymie, change the trajectory of the process. So I don't think. Okay, I get your perspective on not much coming out of it, given that at the very least, the leadership of each chamber are they have very different approaches that could be seen as opposed, though I would hope that something or a complementary way could come about for it. But yeah, I think that anything happening is not, frankly, even basic legislation is not necessarily a guarantee given the way that this next session of Congress is likely to unfold.
Well, to tell you the truth, I would stand fast and not cave in to the Dems. That's my stance. The only one that has taken action and done what he can, and he does not have the authority to enforce immigration law, so he's enforcing Texas law and protecting our border, is Governor Abbott. And I commend him for that, and I commend him for the stand that he took, giving that letter to Biden and to our local representative Escobar.
Yeah, it was an interesting letter. Again, we read some of that yesterday, and it's definitely out there on social media, including, tell you what, we'll post up probably right after the show the link to the article from our news partners at KFOX 14 that includes some of the many documents that were shared during the visit on Sunday, including the pictures that Mayor Leeser took and handed to the president in a book format, and again the letter that Governor Greg Abbott handed to the president there. They've got a decent wrap-up of what those were. There were a few other things that were also passed around that I don't think have made it into a quote-unquote public record yet. At the very least, it hasn't been fully released, including a prayer card that Bishop Seitz says that he gave to the president that was passed along to him by a child that was in the Sacred Heart area, if I'm not mistaken, from remembering that correctly. So there's a few more things extant out there. Whether or not we see those, it's a minor point here, but yeah, there's been the points that have been made about that more specifically. That letter, again, it was kind of echoed, I would have to say, if not in the exact same terms or phrasing, by what, again, U.S. Senator from Texas, John Cornyn, said as the kind of conclusion of their visit to the area yesterday. Yes,
well, that brings me to my next point. Biggest political blunder, like I said, not including Governor Abbott on this particular visit. And as for the local bishop, Mark Seitz, I'm not going to even go there, because to me that guy is totally useless. Totally useless. Now, on my final point, this is to Messiah Frankie. Last night I just found out that Biden was found to have confidential, top secret, and compartmentalized documents. What do you think of them apples, Frankie? Anyway, Andrew, I'll let you have the last word, please, and then I'll turn the mic over to you.
Sure thing here. I mean, yeah, that story has been coming up the top of the hour news breaks there. Not one we brought up during the course of the show here, though. I'm sure that more of that will develop by the time we get to Friday here. So we'll see if we get him on the line today. But in any case, I mean, yeah, turnabout fair play. And if rules are applied to one, it should apply to all. Otherwise, they're not called rules. They're called something I'm doing to you. But But again, on the immigration situation, I will say when it comes to the diocese specifically, that a lot of shelters and other things like that have been set up. So their part of that, I think, was coming primarily from that standpoint. Maybe not so much the policy, though. There could be things that affect it in the long run, particularly if any potential immigration laws. Though, again, I'm not holding my breath on anything specifically happening, though I will be pleasantly surprised if anything ends up coming in, actually making it out and being signed on the president's desk coming out of any part of this term of Congress.
Yes, sir. Oh, one last thing, and I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this. Hey, to all you liberals out there, shouldn't this disqualify Biden from holding office, these confidential documents? Remember, a vice president cannot declassify documents. So, hey, Andrew, have a good evening. Take care.
You too as well. Thanks for the part in the call. You have a good one there.
Okay.
And James Ratcliffe asking kind of in relation to the last point I was making about who pays for these shelters, the ones being set up by the diocese, largely donations and the funds from the diocese itself there. So I guess you could make an argument for tithing, though I'm not up enough on the exact funding sources. So that's my supposition without having anything concrete I can point to here. But most of the nonprofit community that exists in town outside of the governmental efforts, which are frankly the newer part of it when it comes to setting up the shelters, welcome centers, yes, those aspects, the city and the county's efforts are very much coming from taxpayer funds, whether it be local or some of the national both reimbursements and prepayments that have come out. I think what the last number was roughly about $10 million that came in from about $6 million prepayments for efforts going forward, and then about $3 million. And I think this was primarily to the city in this number I'm referencing there for expenditures that had already come through. So there is certainly that aspect of it. But when it comes to, again, the essentially private efforts or the religious organization efforts, those are largely self-funded, so donation-based to my understanding. Let's go ahead and take that next break right now. We got more calls on the line here. We'll get into more of those as we do second hour of the program as usual. So again, if you want to get on the line, just keep in mind it's filled up already. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Long delays on Gateway East due to a disabled big rig that's stuck at the Airway exit. Traffic is backed up to Geronimo, and only the far left lane is getting by. I-10 eastbound at Vinton, a disabled big rig is blocking the right shoulder. Slow traffic Montana Avenue eastbound from Trowbridge out to Zaragoza, 11-minute delays. And 7-minute delays on the spur eastbound from the Gateway to the Loop. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Winning $1,000 incites all kinds of emotions.
Are you kidding? No way.
What to do with it is up to you.
We're going to Key West, that's it. What are you, nuts? We're going to Atlantic City.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 with inflation compensation.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 every hour from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Enter the nationwide keyword at ktsmradio.com for your chance to win. Brought to you by Sunland Park, Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, where buying a car is fun.
This report is sponsored by iHeartAdvertising.com.
Is it getting harder to find new customers? As the #1 audio company in America, we can help you grow your business at a fraction of the cost. Get started today by visiting iHeartAdvertising.com. That's iHeartAdvertising.com.
On the podcast, Hey Dude, the 90s Called, David Lasher and Christine Taylor, stars of the cult classic show Hey Dude, bring you back to the days of slip dresses and choker necklaces.
We're going to use Hey Dude as our jumping off point, but we are going to unpack and dive back into the decade of the 90s.
We lived it, and now we're calling on all of our friends to come back and relive it.
Listen to Hey Dude, the 90s Called on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey Texas! This time of year is all about coming together and enjoying time-honored holiday traditions or starting your own. This winter, make sure your fellow Texans, especially those with a serious mental health condition, know how to stay informed and protected from increased COVID-19 risks associated with serious mental illness. Getting vaccinated is pro-Texan protection against COVID-19. Visit www.vaccines.gov/search to find a vaccine provider near you.
My doctor told me my blood pressure is borderline. I figured I could worry about it or do something about it. So I took control with Garlic Healthy Blood Pressure Formula. It works safely and naturally to help maintain healthy blood pressure with a custom blend of garlic, vitamins, and minerals. And it's odor-free. I'm taking charge with Garlic Healthy Blood Pressure Formula.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
If you want to save money and start the year right, Staples has you covered.
I need everything to restock my business. File folders, break room supplies, even business cards.
Staples has you covered with big savings on everything you need for your home or office. And now at Staples, Rewards members get $30 back via Staples Store Bonus when they spend $100. That's $30 to use toward everything from ink to tech. Save big right now at Staples, the working and learning store. Rewards members only. Store bonus redeemable in-store only. Offer ends 1/21.
Weather and traffic info. You need it? We have it. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi.
Oh, hey. Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
In 50 feet, turn left. Why are you driving so slowly?
After a few drinks, I'm taking it slow.
Well, you're not fooling the cop behind you.
What?
Get ready to pay in 0.1 miles.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one, because that's where most of the comments end up coming in. So if you want to join us over there, more than welcome to. But also Facebook, other Facebook pages, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch are certainly available and out there for you. Again, Twitter's more of a DM thing, but we'll still read and pay attention to the comments coming from there. One thing I want to make sure we got to here is that one of the questions that particularly came up yesterday in our coverage was about what happened in downtown and south central El Paso ahead of the visit. The idea of sanitization being brought forth here. Did receive a statement towards the end of the show yesterday. Weren't quite able to get to it on air from CBP, from a CBP spokesperson, which reads, quote, CBP, which is responsible for securing the U.S. border between ports of entry, uses a layered approach that includes patrolling the border itself, nearby areas and neighborhoods, and conducts checkpoints, both stationary and temporary, in response to migrants evading apprehension in the El Paso area. The United States Border Patrol has increased the number of agents patrolling the area. And so that is at least part of the kind of conversation, more of the official response about the idea of there being ongoing operations even ahead of the announcement of the visit there. So that's the statement there. I want to make sure we got that out there as well. But let's go back to those phone lines now. Again, taking those to the end of the hour now. Number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Barbara on the west side with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call. Briefly, I want to comment on Congressman Escalade. She says it took 2 months for Congress to get their act together. It took her 2 years to get Biden here, and then she's a sanitized El Paso. It took her 2 years to come to figure out that it wasn't just people from Mexico and Central America that were coming across our border, but 146 other countries coming to our border. They're panicking. They don't know how to solve the problem. And now they say it's the Republicans' fault. Well, that is a false statement. So if she had been awake 2 years ago, she would see who's coming into our country. And talking about that, just last night, it's Senator Cornyn and them were going down, I guess, Border Highway. They stopped for an apprehension. Turns out there were 2 Chinese crossing into El Paso. Chinese. Seriously. So please don't say it's the Republicans' fault. Now, I wanted to talk about Biden's plan for the migration. He's planning on, 30,000 from Venezuela, Nicaragua, Haiti, and Cuba. That's 120,000 a year, 120,000, which is 1.4 million a year, okay? In addition to that, he wants 480,000 more for refugees from Latin America and the Caribbean. So that takes us almost to 2 million. And just the fiscal year of 23, there have been 713 apprehensions on our borders. 165 of them were in the El Paso sector. Customs and Border Patrol says that 222 increase from last year. Plus, there were 78,000 getaways. So we need to talk about this. How does Biden propose to pay for the illegal immigration plan that he has? Well, he is going to raise the fees for legal immigrants applying to come into the United States. Some of them are going from 35% to 1,200% increase. And the ones he's doing is the H-1B visas, the skilled workers are going from $60 to $780. Non-agricultural is going from $460 to $1,080. And the amount of money just keeps going up. And those who apply for green cards, it's going from $1,140 to $1,540. So those increases are from 35% to 1,200%. And they're saying that this is going to bring in approximately $6.4 billion in extra revenue. And they're going to use $2 billion of that to reduce the backlog of the asylum claims that they have created. So what else is he going to do? Well, when Trump was in office, he implemented what's called public charge. And he put up restrictions on any legal immigrant in the United States who applied for a green card and ultimately citizenship. He said they could not apply for it if they had relied on government subsidies. This January, President Biden threw out President Trump's public charge. And this month, what they did is they put Biden's public charge rule in effect. So what's happening now is anybody that has had food stamps, Medicare, or housing is not prohibited from applying for green cards like President Trump had restricted them. And then I'm going to quote this because this is the United States Customs and Immigration Service. Last week, USCIS started imposing Biden's policy, which specifies foreign nationals with a history of welfare dependency will not be excluded from seeking green cards to permanently resettle in the USA. Those are facts. So he is creating a bigger welfare state that we're going to have to pay for because these individuals crossing do not have the means to get on their feet 4 years, if any, maybe when their children are bigger. I don't know. And this comes after a report from Rasmussen showing that 69% of Americans want to actually reduce legal immigration. Why would we want to reduce legal immigration and increase illegal immigration? And, you know, I was hearing the lady from the El Paso Electric and the San Diego, they just don't get it. There's a legal pathway into our country. And they're not costing us. But now they're going to penalize the legal immigrants applying to come into the United States. They're going to sacrifice them in order to get all these illegal immigrants that are coming in now. Now, regarding those illegal immigrants that were downtown without papers, they can't leave because the Border Patrol check station is stopping them. They don't want to go back to Mexico. What is El Paso's permanent plan for them? I mean, they can't just house them at the church indefinitely. They can't put them in the schools because they closed the schools. There are so many questions that need to be answered that we're not getting answers from our leaders. But the fact that they're now penalizing legal immigrants to pay for illegal immigrant costs and the backlog that they have caused is outrageous. And I cannot believe, and I'm sure that he has the blessings of our congresswoman. How can they get on camera and just ignore the poor in our community? It doesn't make any sense to me. They're not using rationale. And I understand we need to have a heart for people coming from other countries that want to be here. But at the expense of legal immigrants who are coming, and they're immediately, in my opinion, coming into our country, becoming a part of our fabric, assimilating into our country. They want to do that. But I don't see that happening with these illegal immigrants. And how are they going to, I don't know, if they're breaking the law and the E-Verify is implemented the way the Republicans want to do, where does that leave all these people coming in? This is just an enigma, a humongous one. I don't see an end, and I don't see a solution the way our representative and our president and our local leaders are seeing this. They've got to see the wider picture, and it's not just today. That's not how you solve a problem, just today's problem, which is going to exist 4 years down the road. It's not like we have a bottomless pit of money, the American taxpayer. Sooner or later, this is going to just implode on all of us, unfortunately.
So in answer to at least one of your questions there about what will essentially happen with those that are in that kind of that legal limbo, the not having been processed through or being essentially stuck here, I think that's at least part of the problem of what was being addressed anyway when there was being the busing coming out of El Paso, going to be processed in other places. So I'm not sure if that can still be deployed on this on this aspect of it, but that would be at least what has kind of happened related to it previously, because I mean, yeah, the pretty much across the board, I mean, there may be a specialized agency or two out there, but resettlement is not really the focus of most of the nonprofit community that deals with this in town, nor is it the governmental response. It's kind of a keep it moving. So if it comes to anything besides that, well, okay, I see two potential ends: either removal if they are a part of the Venezuelan population, which honestly, I don't see being applied just universally blanketly is going to be a good idea in this circumstance, because what you were talking about when you were also to link this to the whole visa conversation, if you're making it more difficult to come into the light, so to speak, and not be in the shadow of the law, why would anyone that is currently existing outside of it, however difficult it may be, what is then the incentive for them to remove themselves from that situation and therefore find themselves removed entirely from the country? So the incentives and the way, I mean, people aren't stupid, even if what, circumstances they're coming from, if they know that there's a threat. I mean, that the entire point of it was part of the reason we saw kind of the issues involving people going to shelters or not. The idea of the possibility of there being roundups or things happening there was at least part of the contribution to that point here. And one of the further thing I want to say, the other clips that we did have Ricardo Samaniego, El Paso County judge, but the other ones were from the new CEO of the El Paso Chamber, Andrea Hutchins. Just want to make sure to clarify that real quick.
Well, they talk like there isn't any talent in El Paso, and that's just so far from the truth. And they want to bring someone else to do the jobs in El Paso when we have qualified people. But when you're bringing in immigrants, illegal immigrants, they are going to be paid under the table. That's not benefiting our community. It's not benefiting workers. They need to see, like I said, the whole picture. If we do A, what's the consequences for B? And then if it's not a positive effect, then they need to work on the in-between A and B to find a solution. And they're not doing that. They're just using their hearts, and they're not thinking. They're not using their brain. That's my opinion. As to how to solve this horrific problem. And I don't know if you saw Marsha Blackburn on TV this morning, Blackburn. She was talking about a woman that they met in Eagle Pass who said she had been raped 400 times. That's just unfathomable. How can our leaders stand there and say that this is okay? This is happening to women every day and children. But they're just focused on the people that made it here. That lady will never be whole again, which is really, really sad. But we have people who are just dug in their heels, and this is what they want, and this is how it's going to be, and that's really sad. And I hope that the Republicans come up with a plan that is bipartisan regarding the the illegal immigration problems that we have, to include border security. And like I keep saying, work within our borders and then expand. So anyway, that's it, friend.
I mean, there's a lot to go into here, and I'm sure more will continue to come up here. I mean, we're going to continue having conversations about parts of this here. It just feels relevant at this point. We're going to be talking a little bit later this week with the Hope Border Institute, kind of parts of the diocese efforts. I mean, they're a faith-based organization. They have their offices previously. Anyway, last time I was able to visit them in person, we're actually on at least some of the land owned by and offices same by where the the Diocese of El Paso is. They're a little bit more focused on kind of the study of things, but they have been a part of some of these conversations. So we talk more about them, about kind of some of these circumstances around it, what factors are, what solutions may or may not look like, and kind of their response to these policies that are being put forth, the changes that we've seen already. So we'll be delving more into that this week, but there'll always be more to talk about this. I mean, that's why it was our number one news topic of last year, because, yeah, this has been perennial and constant, and I will be very, very surprised if we have reason to no longer be talking about it anytime within the even foreseeable future.
I agree 100%, unfortunately.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take that next break right now. So coming out of this break, we'll be talking more and taking more on the phone calls and on the phone lines there. And just as a reminder, if you're not actually responding to what people say, or literally throwing around accusations of terrorism for people that are going to be putting forth their sincere concern about things, you're going to find yourself at the very least in timeout and more or less removed entirely. So we'll go ahead and take that next break. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this Fox 14 News Update. The San Elizario mayor has been arrested and charged with insurance fraud. Deputies have arrested 41-year-old Isela Reyes. Reyes is the current mayor of San Eli, and she was taken into custody today. The arrest stems from an investigation in which the El Paso County Sheriff's Office received information that Reyes had filed a false insurance claim. Reyes was booked into the El Paso County Jail in lieu of a $25,000 bond. It should be noted that the offense occurred prior to Reyes becoming the mayor of San Eli. However, the FBI West Texas Border Corruption Task Force was involved since she is currently a public official. And the Public Service Board, or the PSB, is scheduled to make a final decision on El Paso Water's proposed budget and surcharge that was proposed in November of last year. In November, El Paso Water proposed the new surcharge would nearly double the monthly fee for new homeowners. It would specifically be in new developed areas in the northeast, northwest, and east side of El Paso. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Right lanes are still closed on Gateway East before Airway due to an earlier incident. Left lane is back open there. I-10 westbound at the Prospect, Wyoming downtown exits. 2 vehicles are up on the right shoulder, stay to the left. Slow traffic, Montana Avenue eastbound between Trowbridge and Zaragoza. It's a 15-minute delay. And watch for a crash on Gateway West after Viscount. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Cold one for tonight, lows in the 30s and 40s, partly to mostly cloudy skies. And then we go windy and cooler for our Wednesday. We're talking about west winds tomorrow, 25 to 35 miles per hour. After the winds calm down, we'll see cooler weather returning for our Thursday with a high around 60, slightly warmer here Friday with a high around 62 degrees. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Progressive Insurance.
Save big store-wide at the Truckload event at Lowe's, happening now. For a limited time, get up to 50% off select tools and accessories. Shop the event in-store or online today. Valid 12/29 through 1/25 while supplies last. Selection varies by location. See Lowe's.com for details.
Why do you buckle up when you get in your truck? Maybe you do it to get home safely to your loved ones, or because you take your job as a professional driver seriously, or because you want to follow the law to stay safe. Remember, it doesn't matter how long you've been driving, or even if it's a quick trip. Wear your seatbelt to stay safe on the road. Learn more at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. That's www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. And remember to buckle up when you get behind the wheel. Paid for by FMCSA.
Welcome to the
recap games live from the Hayes bedroom. It's another eventful night, Bruce.
It sure is, Ron. Steve has been struggling with his CPAP.
His wife, Michelle, is trying to contain her rage.
Michelle throws an elbow.
She's leaving for the couch.
Steve should get Inspire.
Absolutely, Bruce. Inspire is a sleep apnea treatment that gives you comfortable, restful sleep with the click of a remote. There's no mask and no hose. Just sleep.
Learn more at inspiresleep.com.
Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you and review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
Is foot pain making your life miserable? The Good Feet store wants to help. We invite you to visit our store at Airway Boulevard at I-10 for a free fitting and test walk and learn more about how the Good Feet store can help you find relief. The Good Feet store.
Save now on appliances and more at the Truckload event at Lowe's. Get an additional 10% off all in-store clearance appliances and take home what you buy same day. Shop the Truckload event today. Exclusions apply while supplies last. Selection varies by location. See Lowe's.com for details. Valid 1/5 through 2/8. This report is sponsored by Lowe's.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages that we are up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of people chiming in, adding their 2 cents, or dropping those likes and reacts. We do appreciate, including James Holmes, Ion Graham, Amber Banda, RJJ, double echo chamber there, Flaco Jimenez, Ida Beza Gardner, Robbie Flores, Monaco Cervantes, Eric McDab, and Angel Rueda. Again, if you appreciate the ability to talk about the things that affect us here in the Borderland, well, then you're in the right place. If you're wanting to lambast about other programs, other shows here, we do our own thing. We do it in regards to replacement of or in contravention of anything else on our air or any other ways. We want to talk about this because, frankly, I don't find anyone else doing it, at least to a satisfactory degree, this way. So that's what we're here for, and that's what we'll continue to focus on here. One thing I want to answer, a question that ended up coming up here, J squared, I think is what RJ just put up. James Radcliffe asking, how is Texas getting such a high surplus in the budget this year? That's a great question, because we got that $188.2 billion available for the next budget after record-breaking revenue growth. That, again, the headline that we mentioned yesterday as well from the Texas Tribune. It's more than they can literally spend. Not even just like, oh, man, you can't actually functionally get that way, but there's statutory limits on how much they can actually access, including stuff that will be going into rainy day funds, etc. But essentially, the short answer, because it's a complicated one, is that taxes, excise fees, all that stuff has continued to pace. Because sure, there's a lot of recessionary indicators, the fact that there's the mixed part of them, including the fact that the spending has continued to pace. I mean, of course, there isn't an income tax in Texas. There are property taxes, and there are sales taxes, etc. Yeah, all the stuff that you end up getting for the sales tax holidays. The rest of the time, those are taxed. So that has continued apace, essentially. So that's why I still contend that this whole session is going to be cranked up to 11 in terms of the amount. I mean, it's more gas in the tank. That's the only way I can think to put it here. Also, as a side note there, the House has selected previous Speaker of the House, Dade Phelan, as the next speaker for this session, and very notable in a vote of 145-3 of the entire chamber, meaning that only 3 out of all the representatives in the Texas House of Representatives did not vote for him. So that includes a significant amount of Democrats, including who, without seeing a specific comment from him, probably includes at least a majority of our local state delegation. So just an interesting note there. And so, yeah, gavelled in there today, and probably not too much substantive happening so far. There's going to be a lot of bills in process and getting through, but we'll see. Probably once we get into the next couple of months, we'll start seeing more of the actual floor debate, things moving towards and out of committee and actually towards floor votes, that kind of things. We, of course, have the priorities that have been put forth by Texas Governor Greg Abbott, even before the recent visit, as well as Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, that are definitely going to be probably the first ones looked at. But again, it'll be an interesting session that we'll definitely keep our eye on there as well. Let's go back to the phone line right now, get into what we can before the end of the program. We do have Eric on the west side here with us. I think it was the west side. Eric with us right now. Eric, thanks for joining us.
That first caller, Andrew, he was promoting disinformation about what Democrats are asking for in regards to immigration. Schumer, he specifically asked that immigration bill would have to have citizenship for dreamers and a pathway to citizenship for those here. Not what he had said. This is a common a falsehood promoted by right-wing media to promote to oppose progress on this issue, and that's important to acknowledge. And the attacks on our city at our Walmart, it has to be, they need to be in the back of our minds when we discuss these asylum seekers. Because right-wing media insists on dehumanizing and demonizing them at every turn, and that causes right-wing terrorism. You say you like to talk about local issues, but you refuse to acknowledge or even bring up that a homegrown right-wing terrorist from El Paso was radicalized by the disinformation about immigrants and pointed a gun at the the immigrants here in our city.
Aware of what you're talking about here, and no, it's not one of the major topics we brought up because we had that, presidential visit going on. But sure, if you want to bring it up that way, if you haven't noticed, there's a few things that we do on this program that is not like any other in town that at least I'm very much aware of. We're not like the news stations in which we're chasing all of the car crashes, each of the individual crimes here. We've been talking about some of the larger situations, things that affect the city as a whole. It's very rare that we end up talking about individual crimes, except for when they start getting massively affecting, like we talked about specifically when it was that there was say someone on the run that was being reported on by actual local police, and that schools were going to get shut down. So that's the philosophy we take on this here. If you're taking it as we're not talking about this, you don't want us to know about it, there's a literally million things that we don't talk about on this show that don't get brought up as some of the major topics. Doesn't mean that we're opposed to talking about them, but we call our shot as of what we think is the most impactful of it here. And sure, you're welcome to bring things up that are of local impact. But if you're saying that and therefore you're opposed to them here, that's not an argument that I think you want to get down into, because we're saying that if you're not bringing something up, you're supporting of it here. There's a lot of things we could get into there about what you have up. Well, you're not brought up yourself there. So that's not a standard that we're going to be accepting as that means you support it, right? Because that's beyond unreasonable.
Well, the head of the police union was just arrested for being a criminal, and you didn't cover that. And that's as impactful and criminal as it gets. But you know that, and you have your reasons for not covering that. And, I've mentioned
literally just said it, my dude.
Interracial marriage, and she shares white supremacist propaganda on your show all the time. And on your Facebook messages.
Okay, so let's get into that point here. You've often made the accusation. You've accused me literally of terrorism previously on this point here, and I can take a lot. I'm literally getting told that I am too patient in some of the comments right now. But let's get into this idea and the idea of talking about it here. And bringing up of these, really, it comes down to the idea of, okay, then what? If you have put forth this accusation, what do you expect to happen? Because really what you end up coming through with this is that you're expecting, it's an appeal to authority. It's what you're doing. You're saying, oh, no, this is bad. It's the worst label I can think to give of this, and therefore I want something to happen, but you're not actually putting it forth. It comes down to a you suck comment. That's what this ends up coming down to, and why you have found yourself, at the very least, in timeout when it comes to the comments here, because just spamming it forth and not actually even responding to what's being talked about. There are plenty of people who bring up things that I absolutely disagree with in the comments and even with the calls here, but giving them the chance to actually say it and let it be discussed is the important point and what we're doing here. Don't worry, not under the skin here, but this has been simmering for a while now. So let me just say this. If you want to talk about the issues, and honestly, it comes down to, okay, if you want to get down to brass tacks with it, I don't know what you stand for, my dude. A lot of people put forth what is important to them and what they want to see happen. But all this ends up really coming down to, for the most part from you there, is well, you suck and you shouldn't be allowed to say that. That's not substantive comments. That's not what this show is focused on. We are not here to be thought police, but rather discuss the idea. So if you want to say that's why this is bad, as opposed to just you're bad and therefore should be gotten rid of, yeah, we're going to move on from that. So we've got tools that we will be deploying that we have to, unfortunately, within the last week. And we've got some very, very, very simple policies we put there. So if you're not actually talking about like what's important to you, that's not something we're going to do. And frankly, it goes against the entire mission of the show, which is to talk about the things. If it comes down to, no, you're not allowed to talk about that, I don't think that's gotten into a good position here. And I know you often put forth the idea of, oh, well, I want people to change their minds. Literally, answer me this question right now, or we're just going to move on from the call. Have you ever in your life found yourself having your mind changed by someone yelling at you that effectively that you suck and you shouldn't think that way? Has that ever been persuasive for you personally?
I've answered that question before.
No,
People are promoting great.
No, you literally haven't. You keep going on to you're promoting things that I think are ultimate evils. The way you're putting it forth here, you're great with the labels, my dude, but the substance behind them is often missing here. So one last chance, one last one, and then we're gonna move on from this call. Have you ever found that line of reasoning, ideas being put forth to you in that way? Has that been persuasive in your life?
Self-awareness is really important in order to admit you're wrong. And if
Absolutely. I will 100% agree with you on that point here, but if you're going to refuse to actually like answer me back and forth and you just want to get your bully pulpit going here and answering with it, simple answer, we're not going to do that. So I would say thank you for the point in the call, but I'm not quite sure I can say that in this circumstance, because really, what was the substance there besides saying that these people I disagree with suck? So anyway, let's go ahead, and I think we can get one more quick call on the line. We do have Frankie and Masil on the line with us here right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
Okay, so operative word discombobulated. I heard that 2 Texans have got $33 billion in a surplus fund, and your governor, Abbott and Costello, wants to spend half of it for reduction in property taxes, which is a good thing. The other guy, Paxton or Patrick, wants to spend $15 billion to fix your electric grid. Now, wait a minute. Where's the disconnect here? Supposedly, earlier, your governor said, oh, everything's working. Yes, the electric grid is fine. So why are you spending $15 billion to fix your electric grid? Why don't you give $33 billion to all your Texans out there that are paying out the nose for your property taxes? And that's my question.
I mean, yeah, the whole idea of electrical reliability has certainly come up and will probably be a part of this. I know that at least another point, wasn't a clip we played, but when I reviewed today of what Abbott said during his visit, his part of the visit to El Paso was they're also looking at probably spending another $4 billion on border security or Operation Lone Star-like efforts. So it'll probably be going to that as well. But yeah, the estimates vary somewhat. I think the final number that's kind of coming down to is that this is actually about $188 billion of the total budget, with about, I saw about 25 to 30, so I didn't see the exact number you're putting forth there of the amount of the surplus. So there's probably going to be a lot of tax cuts, tax breaks, things like that discussed. This session is probably going to be just amped up to that next level. So whether or not that goes through, again, the lieutenant governor and the governor are pretty much in the driver's seat in a lot of ways, but there's not necessarily a given that the House of Representatives is going to go along with that. There's often been some, even within the party, butting heads that way. So this will be one to watch, is the short answer I can say for you.
Well, I hear that. I don't have any skin in the game here, but I'm just saying, if you've got that kind of money, and all you Texans out there are just paying through the nose for your property taxes, if again, and I repeat, if supposedly your electric grid is working so wonderfully, according to your governor out there, then what's the problem? Just give the whole $33 billion in refunds to all you Texans out there paying through the nose. That's my point.
I understand that. Let me just say this. One of the many reasons I am very happy we are where we are here in El Paso and in the Borderland and pretty much all of our listening area under that El Paso Electric service is that, let me just put it this way, we are not on that grid, and I continue to be happy about that.
Well, God bless you all you folks. Like I said, I mean, I love being New Mexican land of enchantment, but I love you Texans too, because you guys are some of the greatest people in the world. But I wish the best for you. You know what I'm saying?
I wish us the best too, so I appreciate the thought and the call. You have a good one there.
All right, keep me on. Keep me on.
Well, we'll be taking that next break right now, so stay tuned. We'll talk more about what we got coming up for you after this break, so stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Back in a minute.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Left lane is back open on Gateway East at Airway Boulevard, but there's a backup back to Geronimo. I-10 eastbound between Sunland Park and the Loop, it's a 5-minute delay. And Montana Avenue is slow with 15-minute delays eastbound from Trowbridge out to Zaragoza. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Save big store-wide at the truckload event at Lowe's, happening now. For a limited time, get up to 50% off select tools and accessories. Shop the event in-store or online today. Valid 12/29 through 1/25 while supplies last. Selection varies by location. See Lowe's.com for details.
On a busy construction site, things can be misinterpreted. Bring in the bulldozer can sound a lot like,
building looks mediocre. Designs need a do-over.
or even,
install a roller coaster? Okay.
be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk. From the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building, Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, can we actually bring in the bulldozer?
Hey, Texas, there are approximately 950,000 individuals in Texas living with a serious mental illness, which is an individual risk factor for severe COVID-19. If you or someone you know is living with a serious mental health condition, such as schizophrenia, major depressive disorder, or bipolar disorder, make sure they know where to go this holiday season to stay safe and healthy. Visit covidvaccine.texas.gov to find resources and location information for vaccine providers near you. Stay healthy, Texas.
My doctor told me my cholesterol is borderline, so I took control with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula. Garlic helps maintain healthy cholesterol safely and naturally. It's odor and taste-free, and Garlic is a world leader in garlic potency. I'm taking charge of my cholesterol with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula, cholesterol's natural enemy.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
I didn't think it was possible to meet someone like Susan. We just clicked after realizing we each have a strong sense of self and share the same core values in life.
After taking our advanced personality test, Daniel and Susan matched on Silver Singles, the secure dating site for 50-plus singles who know what they want. Sign up today at silversingles.com/date. That's silversingles.com/date.
Paid actors representing True Customer Testimonials. Names have been changed.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I have been your host, Andrew J. Polk. We covered a lot of ground here today, but we're going to be talking even more about some more of these issues, including, of course, checking with our news partners at KFOX 14 on some of their big and locally impacting and investigative stories. And then a little bit later on in the week, more from the some of the nonprofit community that deals with these issues involving immigration in our region, kind of analysis of what some of these immigration policy changes, the ones that have come forth anyway, might actually have an impact on and kind of response to the things that were discussed during this visit as well. Again, policy focused. That's probably one of the major things that we do on this show whenever we're talking about politicians and what they're bringing forth. But that'll do it for us for today. I do want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. You know, we'll do it tomorrow as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. So in the meantime, until next time, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for an accident in Zaragoza at Joe Battle Boulevard, northbound slowing traffic. Gateway North at Hercules Avenue on-ramp, there's an accident with police responding there. I-10 westbound at Yarborough, bad time for a vehicle to be stopped in the left lane. It's causing a backup. Sean Haggerty northbound at Gateway North, an accident. And an injury accident, George Dieter northbound before Montwood. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Paid for by government.com.
Did you hear? A recent stash of $10 gold Liberty coins from the 1800s has been found. These gorgeous gold coins are as bright and shiny as the day they were struck in the late 1800s, and less than 50 of these gold coins are available. Coin experts are calling this gold find an incredible opportunity. Call 1-800-456-2466, and you are guaranteed a $10 gold Liberty coin minted by the U.S. Mint in the 1800s. But with extremely limited availability, you must call now. These gold Liberty coins from the 1800s are still in uncirculated condition. That is history you can hold in your hand. To learn more, call 1-800-456-2466. Call now, and you'll receive a free American Coin Collector's Bonus Package, a $40 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-456-2466 now to secure your $10 gold Liberty coins dated from the 1800s before they sell out. That's 1-800-456-2466.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Relentless rainstorms are slamming California. Michelle Mead with the National Weather Service says it's not over yet.
We had a line of pretty hefty thunderstorms move through between 3 and 5 a.m. Unfortunately, we are setting up for another round for this afternoon through the evening.
Forecasters are warning Californians to expect unusual bouts of hail, lightning storms, wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour, and possible weak tornadoes to go along with the heavy rain. The former chief financial officer for the Trump Organization is being sentenced to 5 months in prison on state tax fraud charges. Alan Weisselberg, who worked for Trump for decades, pleaded guilty last year and will now head directly to prison. Weisselberg went on to testify against former President Trump's company as part of his plea deal. President Biden is wrapping up the North American Leaders Summit. He delivered remarks Tuesday in Mexico City alongside Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada and President Andrés Manuel López Obrador of Mexico. He touched on key issues related to the southern border with the two countries. The U.S. is facing more than $165 billion in damages after 18 extreme weather events last year. Lisa Taylor has more.
A report from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration said climate disasters in 2022 made it the third costliest year on record. That includes 3 hurricanes, tornado outbreaks, wildfires in the West, and flooding in Kentucky and Missouri. I'm Lisa Taylor.
More damning evidence linked to the disappearance of a missing Massachusetts mom has allegedly been found. Earlier this week, prosecutors say the husband of Anna Walsh, Brian Walsh, is being held after cops searched their home in Cohasset, southeast of Boston, and found a bloody knife and cleaning supplies. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. 2 New York Democrats are filing a complaint against Congressman George Santos with the House Ethics Committee. Lisa G. reports.
Congressman Dan Goldman and Richie Torres filed the official complaint asking for an investigation over Santos's finances. They claim Santos violated the Ethics in Government Act by failing to file accurate, complete, and timely financial disclosure reports as required by law. Meantime, on Monday, a federal watchdog group urged the Federal Election Commission to investigate Santos as well, claiming he violated federal campaign finance laws.
Lisa G. reporting. The Department of Transportation says it's dealing with thousands of complaints from Southwest Airlines customers. Officials said they have sent every complaint directly to Southwest, while demanding the carrier provide substantive responses to all of them within 60 days. The complaints stem from the scheduling meltdown Southwest experienced over the holiday travel season. A federal judge is blocking part of New Jersey's concealed carry gun law. Natalie Migliori has more.
The judge's decision comes less than a month after Governor Murphy signed legislation severely limiting where concealed guns can be carried by designating sensitive places. Judge Renee Marie Bum handed down a 60-page ruling, saying the regulations were too strict and posed considerable constitutional problems. Attorney General Matthew Placken previously said New Jersey is ready for legal battles, but in her decision, Bum wrote leaders should have been better prepared to defend the law.
Pizza Hut is bringing back a fan favorite from the 90s. The Big New Yorker will return to menus nationwide on February 1st after a nearly 25-year hiatus. The 16-inch pizza is about 30% bigger than the largest pizza currently sold at the chain. Pizza Hut describes the pie as big and bold as the city that never sleeps. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
The music we listen to all year long. The anthems that were our soundtrack for 2022. And the stars who made the songs we love will all be celebrated.
Live from Los Angeles on Fox.
March 27th.
Let's get it started. Be here as this year's nominees are unveiled. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 Pacific.
This is the Piketon Massacre, Return to Pike County.
New details into what was uncovered at the gruesome crime scenes in Pike County.